Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2 of Unlimited. Today, we are talking about being more than your personality test. Lots of people love personality tests, and I want to talk a little bit about tests versus assessments. Personality assessments, why I don't like them very much. What makes a personality assessment different from an attitudinal assessment, and the energy leadership index assessment and breakdown of the 7 levels of energy that take things out of a binary perspective and put them into a broader, more expansive perspective so that you can utilize it in a way that helps move you forward instead of one that boxes you in and limits you. So without further ado, let's get started. Hey there, I'm Valerie Friedlander, Certified Life Business Alignment Coach, and this is Unlimited. This podcast bridges the individual and the societal, scientific and spiritual, positive and negative, nerdy and no, there's just a lot of nerdy. Come on board and let's unlock a life that's as badass as you are. A lot of the people that I work with love personality tests or personality assessments. And actually, just real quick, a thing about tests and assessments. A lot of people use the words interchangeably. A test is something that has right or wrong answers, so you can pass or fail it. An assessment just gives you kind of a look at where you're at or what thing, like a picture of what things look like. I like to highlight that because people often will use the word test. And it's like, well, but that's not the right word. I'm kind of a word nerd, so bear with me. That is one of the things that comes up a lot is when people use words, I like to ask them, what does that word mean to you? Because sometimes we use words in ways that create limits for ourselves because we have a subconscious meaning that doesn't actually fit with the conscious meaning. Anyway, that might be an episode for another time. So back to personality assessments. I work with a lot of people who love them. Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, StrengthsFinder, things like that. Like personality assessments are all the rage in corporate and entrepreneurship and all of that. And I think they can be really helpful in terms of getting a sense of what's going on for you. So normalizing things that you're experiencing, which is important. It's really important to recognize so that you can accept where you're at and then build from there. What often happens, though, with personality assessments is that it creates a box that you don't even realize. I hear people all the time say, oh, well, I'm an Enneagram 1 or I'm a INFP or whatever it is. And they use that as kind of a way of saying, well, that I can't really do that or I don't do that because of this. And it may very well be that they choose to do things a certain way, or there are certain things that play more to their natural strengths to build on. But if it's stopping you from doing something that you want to do or creating an obstacle, that's where it can be a bit of an issue. Anything that creates limits intentionally, unintentionally, well, especially unintentionally, is something that we want to engage because 95% of our brain is subconscious. It's not the things that we're thinking about consciously. It's just happening behind the scenes. So our brain likes to put things into buckets and go, okay, well, this means this, and this means this, and this means this. And it helps us work faster and do things in just expedite what we're doing. But it can create subconscious limits. It influences the way we perceive things that are coming into our life. It creates essentially a lens that we perceive the world through. And it's based in everything in our life up until now. So all the past experiences that you've had, I would even pull in genetically, like historically, the family dynamics, the things that have influenced our family through generations, they get passed down in the way our brain synaptically connects information and what triggers our fight and flight response, like what automatically goes straight to the limbic system and bypasses the frontal cortex and releases hormones that say, we're in danger, run or fight or whatever it is, and creates that reactivity that people get really frustrated by. So understanding that is an understandable dynamic, and you can do something about it. When we do the personality stuff, oftentimes we go, well, that's just the way I am. And that's not always true. But because we've taken an assessment, we just kind of pass it off. So I want to invite you to actually question that and use any personality assessments as an awareness tool to notice what might come easier or harder for you, but not necessarily as a, well, that's the way I am. I always struggle with anything, especially that puts you into a binary. So for example, introvert, extrovert. When we say introvert, extrovert, then it's like, what does that mean? How do you define that? And there are various definitions of that. But when you say it, what do you mean? Is it how much you like to be around people or don't like to be around people? I know plenty of people are like, I like dogs better than people. Totally fine. But is that how you're defining it and how you're defining yourself? Or is it where you get your energy? Is it where on the spectrum are you? I know people who are like, well, I'm kind of an ambivert. Okay. So how is that serving you? What impact is it having in your life? How is that working? So engaging those things instead of just saying that, well, this is just what it is. I personally use an assessment that's not personality based. It is perception based, which means that it is subjective. It very much depends on where you're at when you take the assessment, though we do typically have standard patterns that we fit into. This assessment's called the Energy Leadership Index Assessment, and it was created by Bruce D. Schneider, who founded the coach training program that I went through that I talked a little bit about in the last episode about what is coaching. The coach training program is IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. And so it's grounded in that. So when you see the letters after my name, it says CPC, which is Certified Professional Coach, and then ELIMP, which is Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioner, all the letters. That's what it's talking about, is that I am certified to administer that assessment and understand that framework. So what is this framework? It's basically, well, actually, let me back up a second. So it's based in perception. And what it's looking at is the lens that you perceive the world through. So what color is your lens? And it's a mix of lots of colors. So it doesn't do a binary. There's actually 7 different levels of energy. And let me take a moment and talk about like energy, this idea of energy. Basically, it's at a quantum level, we are all just vibrating energy. And so the leadership component is how we vibrate, or if you prefer the term, show up. So how we vibrate is how we show up. And how we show up is how we lead our life and how we lead the people around us, because we are all leaders, whether it's by choice or by default. How we lead is about how we get up in the morning, whether we get up in the morning, what we do when we get up in the morning. All of those things are leading life and influence the people around us. So we vibrate, and then things around us vibrate. It sounds kind of woo, I know, but it's actually not. It's actually very scientifically based. And the cool thing is, with an assessment like this, and there are papers on the reliability, validity stuff, because they've done all the due diligence around that. And I can link those in the show notes if you would like to see them. I will make sure they're available to you. Also, because there's an assessment, there's a way to measure how things shift. So when you work with someone who has this as a framework and you do this assessment, it actually can measure how successful is the coaching. So when it comes to coaching, people are like, well, but does it work? Like, will it actually change anything? And the cool thing is that because there's this assessment, they have done studies to determine that, yes, when you work with a coach who utilizes this core energy coaching methodology, you are working with an evidence-based model that's been shown to produce real-life tangible outcomes. Hey, isn't that cool? So cool. If you're a nerd, it's cool. So what is this framework? It's an intervention tool for what's working, what's not, and reducing what's not working and building on what is working. So when you can see how these things are playing, you can go, okay, here are the dynamics that are happening in the way I'm processing life. My brain is processing life, and this is helping. So I want more of that. I want to do the things that increase that. I want to notice what builds that, what fuels that, what motivates that. And I want to also notice what triggers the other stuff and how those are playing out. Because when you can notice a pattern, when you can identify a pattern, then you can engage it. Like, you can't break chains you can't see. But when you can see the chains, when you're like, oh, there's that pattern, then you can interrupt the pattern. So this is about identifying the patterns and intervening to make them work better for you. It's looking at what's called catabolic and anabolic energy. Again, we're using kind of sciencey words. Catabolic energy is energy that breaks things down. So in the world of science, it is that energy that reduces, limits, constricts, and breaks things down. Catabolism in the body is breaking down the nutrients and breaking down cells and that sort of thing. And that is actually how it works in your body. Catabolic energy tends to play primarily in your stress response, in your survival mode, fight, flight dynamics in life. So when we need that kind of energy, you have a release of hormones. You have adrenaline and cortisol run through your system. And those hormones literally break cells down to release the energy in the cell to give you a boost to be able to combat or address whatever stressor is happening, whether it's a real stressor like a bear or a burglar, or what other B word can I come up with? A bad boyfriend? I don't know. Or if it's a perceived one. So if it's something that, maybe somebody says something under their breath and you take it personally, and then that is a perceived threat, or your spouse doesn't care that there are dishes in the sink all the time and it drives you absolutely bonkers, and you perceive that as him not caring about you, and then you get really upset about it. Instead of having a conversation about it, becomes a fight. That sort of thing is where catabolic energy is playing out. Anabolic energy is building, fueling, healing, growing, expanding kind of energy. And this is where we can create. So catabolic energy kind of puts blinders on and zooms us into the potential danger, a very important biological response to have, but it does limit our ability to see options. Like, think about if your kid's running into the street and you need to stop them because they might get hit by a car. You want that burst of adrenaline and cortisol to rush through so that you can get there as fast as possible. But that's not going to really help when you want to harness a teaching moment. So say your kid is doing something that they're not supposed to be doing. Maybe you said it before. It's really easy to be like, why can't you figure this out? I know I've had plenty of those moments, but you actually want to show up with creative solutions, think outside the box, use redirection and all of those sorts of things. That's going to be more of the anabolic space. That's going to be the accessing more expanded forms of perception. So that's kind of the general overview. The assessment itself is broken down into 7 different levels, and it's shown in the form of a circle. I happen to love that it's shown in the form of a circle because, again, as I've mentioned in the trailer, I love analogies. And I think the circle works really well to emphasize the way perception works at a basic level, because we have all of these levels all the time. So it's not like it's only this or only that. Like you have a primary and a secondary in these particular levels, and that's it. They're all playing together all the time, which is actually why when you do the assessment, you kind of have to do a consult with somebody who is certified to administer the assessment, because it's complicated enough. You need someone who can almost intuit what is going on there. And then there needs to be a dialogue to explore it and understand how it's showing up so that you can utilize that information. So I like that it is in a circle, because when you're trying to understand how the levels work, I like to think of a flashlight that has a beam of light that expands and contracts. It's not that any of these levels are good or bad, right? That puts it again into a binary, which, as I mentioned before, can be problematic because ultimately binaries reside in the catabolic energy. So if you're wanting to think more expansively and get creative and shift patterns, being in the catabolic energy isn't going to be so helpful. So looking at it as just what's serving you and what is holding you back, what is more constricted in terms of what you are able to perceive and what is more expansive in what you're able to perceive, helps understand those interplays better without judging them the way we are inclined to do often, because our society is pretty judgy in general. So looking in that center circle, there's the circle of self, and this is the self-preservation. This is the survival mode. This is all catabolic energy. It is your fight flight response and where we are going to be when we perceive a threat. This is most people's stress response. Not everybody has that 1 or 2 as a primary stress response, but most of us do. So level 1 is that life's happening to me, avoiding, losing, overwhelm, guilt, fear, worry, lack of confidence, self-doubt. And it could be in general, or it could be a particular aspect of life. But basically feeling like life's happening to me, life is coming at me, and feeling disempowered. At this level, people avoid making decisions because making it just doesn't feel like you can make a difference. So it's beneficial because it's self-protective, like it's keeping you safe. It's like if there's a bear and you need to hide from the bear, that is a good place to be. If you need to not take responsibility because you're sick and you need to let go and let other people help you, then that can be a helpful place to be. Level 2 is that fight response. So this is more emotional, and this is where anger and frustration and conflict reside. So when you are thinking it's them and they did this to me and I have to fight to make things happen and control things and what's wrong and what's broken, that's that level 2. And it's beneficial in that you can get a lot done quickly. This is meet a deadline. I got to get this deadline done, and you're fighting the deadline, and that sort of thing can be motivational, can push you forward. And as activists and revolutionaries, this is wrong and we've got to fight the power and that sort of thing. And again, it can move you forward, but it's not sustainable. It will not build bridges. It will not help think outside the box and grow. It will just fight. We'll just break things down. So can get things done quickly, but it's not sustainable. It's a focus on someone else or something else losing so that you can win. This is the most prevalent energy level in our society right now. I'm sure that you can think of at least one person, if not multiple people, and organizations. You probably worked for a company that had this kind of energy in it. It's like, for me to win, you have to lose. So I'm going to make you lose so that I can be winning. And level 1, of course, is I'm losing. So those two play together a lot. If you feel attacked, you're likely either going to fight back. So if you feel like somebody's saying, you lose, be like, no, you lose. Or you're going to go, yep, I lose. I suck. So those are very common dynamics. When we start getting out of that kind of energy and we start expanding, we get into the level 3 of rationalizing, tolerating. It's much more cerebral. So this is that level that if you listen to my trailer, I was actually kind of stuck in this level for a while. It's a very helpful level and it feels way better than 1 or 2. So you're like releasing all of that, what feels like toxicity. You're able to go, you do you, boo. Like, I'm going to let you do you. I'm going to forgive and move on. I'm going to flip things around. I'm going to find the silver lining. I'm going to make lemonade out of lemons and make it work the best for me. I really think of level 3 as being the kind of space that I use a lot as a parent with redirection. It's like, I need you to stop doing the thing. But if I tell you to stop doing the thing, you're just going to focus on doing the thing. So I'm going to tell you to do this other thing, because isn't this other thing cool? I don't care if you're doing the other thing. I really only care that you're not doing the thing I don't want you to do. But if you can get a win out of this because you decide that thing that I'm saying is really cool is actually really cool, yay. But ultimately, I'm mostly concerned with you not doing the thing that you're doing right now. So that's a very level 3 kind of experience, which can rapidly turn into level 2 when they keep doing the thing that you told them to not do or tried to distract them from doing, but they actually didn't care because the thing they were doing was way cooler. So that's level 3. Level 3 only works as long as to go back to the lemon analogy, only works as long as you have lemon or sugar in the cabinet. Like if you don't have sugar to make lemonade, then you are just left with lemons and you either mad about it or you feel victimized by the lemons. So that's level 3 is a little slippery, but it can work great for feeling better and pulling yourself out. It's also a place that can keep you kind of stuck because if you can make it good enough, why try for more? When more might let you down, why not stick with good enough? So I do meet a lot of people, and I can actually tell when we do this assessment if somebody is likely to hire me or not. If they have a lot of level 3, there's a good chance, unless they're tired of tolerating and can like that, they're just kind of hanging on to that, they're most likely not going to hire me because good enough is good enough in that experience. Up from there is level 4, and this is the I care about you. This is that compassion. I want to help you win because the true win for me comes when you win first. Now, this one is interesting because I see a lot of people who struggle with codependency running into this one, and this one pairing up with either level 1 or level 2 because they give self-worth gets caught up in their ability to help. And if that is either not acknowledged, the help isn't acknowledged, the help isn't embraced, the help is ignored, the help isn't wanted. There can be some force helping at this level because when we have our ego tied up with our ability to help or our value and worth tied up with our ability to help. So there's a lot of stuff there. Also, the need to self-protect will come up if we don't pay attention to what boundaries we need to have. So overgiving. So even if it isn't tied up with our value, if we got lost and overgave and depleted ourselves and didn't refill our cup, then burnout can happen at this level too. So this one's a little tricky for a lot of people, but at a pure level, which again, none of these they never show up purely because they're all mixed with other and each other. It's about helping other people win and succeed, being compassionate and inspired by other people. And that at a very pure sense can be motivational. It can be really beautiful. It's just when it's playing with some of the other things, it can get a little lost. I actually see this one drop when people have done a lot of work around codependency. This one kind of slides down the scale, and usually it's either level 3 or the more expansive levels start showing up. So it's so fascinating to see how these interplay together. And it gives such a more robust picture of the way we experience life and really understanding what's going on. Up from level 4, naturally level 5, because we go in order. This is the level of opportunity, and seeing that everything has purpose and value, and that even in obstacles, there are opportunities. So whether something went the way you wanted it to or not doesn't really matter. It's just exciting because it's new information and allows you to do the next thing. It's failing forward, basically. Like, you don't think of it as failing, you think of it as learning and growing. So listening to this, you are probably noticing that some of these, you're like, oh yeah, I do that. I do that too. And where those show up and when those show up and what's going on and which ones jump out more than others is something that we get to see when we do this assessment, and then gives you actionable work to do to expand on the places that serve you or where each level serves you. Because again, they all have value. It's just how consciously are you engaging them, and are you looking at them through different lenses? So like, for example, I had a client who needed to let an employee go. It was not a good fit. The employee did not seem motivated, but they really had a hard time because they were very compassionate and caring. They didn't want to hurt this employee's feelings. And they were feeling kind of victimized by it. Like, I don't know how to deal with this person. I want to let them go, but I don't want to deal with the upset that it's going to cause. I don't want to hurt them. And so we explored, well, what would it look like through a level 5 lens? And a level 5 lens wouldn't see this as hurting that person. It wouldn't see this as negative, right? It takes it out of the binary. A level 5 lens would see that it is actually in that person's best interest for you to let them go, as well as in your best interest, because the energy that's getting sucked by not taking that action is actually holding both of you back, keeping them from seeing opportunities that they could step into that would be better fits for them than where they are, because clearly, based on the dynamics, it wasn't a good fit. And so being able to shift and see it differently was how this client was able to engage the conversation in a more productive way, instead of a defeated way, instead of a defensive way. She was able to have a really productive conversation with this employee and keep that bridge strong, help the employee step into a new space. So like, support a transition into finding a different position that would be a better fit, instead of what could have been a really unpleasant experience for both of them. So just shifting the way we look at things can have a huge impact in the way we show up. It's all about leadership, right? So up from there, we get into these circles of self-transcendence. So 3 through 5 are circles of self-mastery, and circles 6 and 7 are self-transcendence. So 6 is like everything. Life is an opportunity. The experience of life is an opportunity. It's not just where you're going, but where you are right now. It's anytime you've gotten so involved in a project that you lost your sense of time because you were having so much fun. You were just enjoying yourself so much. That would be a level 6. Connecting with other people, synergy, purpose, all of that is very level 6. And then level 7 is I'm playing the game of life that I made up by the rules that I also made up. So tapping into this one is usually like in a space of meditation. So those are the levels. And like I said, they interplay together and create this fascinating dynamic. And they're subjective, so they change. I recently did some refreshes of the assessments with clients who did them a few years back. And it was really fascinating to see what changed and what didn't. And not just how the levels changed, but the different amounts, when the different amounts change, that also has an impact, and to see how they have shifted and what's working for them now differently than what was before, and what's holding them back now or creating resistance now and what was then. So I personally love this as an assessment because it sets such a helpful groundwork. And then as a coach, I can come in and focus on coaching the energy, because when we can shift the lens, then you're able to find solutions in a different way that fit you better than any advice that I could possibly give, because it's about you creating alignment in your life. Sometimes that lens is the thing that's blocking the opportunities that would work the best for you, or creating that resistance to taking the action that you say that you want. And when we can shift that lens, knowing what works for you and move into that space, then you're able to take action in a different way than what you were before. It also just helps normalize, again, just like the personality assessment, it helps normalize the experiences that you're having, but also then take action differently to go, okay, now this isn't who I am. This is just the way I'm being right now. And I have power and I can do something about it. And I love that. I love that. Anything that helps people feel more empowered and then able to create what they want to create in the world, and then also lift other people up in the process. Because once you see that energy, you see it not just for yourself, but you see it for other people. And I just think that's so cool, because it actually makes a huge difference in relationship dynamics when you can recognize, oh, they're experiencing level 2. Well, if I don't buy into that and recognize that that's about their lens, then what level would be most helpful for me to show up with? And maybe it's level 4. Like, it sounds like you had a really hard day. I would love to be of support. How can I best do that? Like, it just opens up so many more possibilities. So I love that about this assessment, and this as a framework and a tool for growth. If you are interested in learning more about it, I have a link in the show notes, and also that will show you where to sign up for it. It is, and you don't have to just take my word for it. Forbes has written about it, listed it in its best tests to help you understand your strengths and weaknesses. Again, tests is misused in my personal opinion, but it's still in Forbes. So take that for what it's worth. And my clients who have taken it, a number of them have said it's one of the best personal development investments they've ever made. So there's that too. So I'll have a link to where you can learn more about it and sign up for it if you would like to learn more about what it can show you in your life. And I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening. I so appreciate you being here. If you got something out of today's episode, please share it. Leave me a review, take a screenshot, and post it on social with a shout out to me. Send it to a friend, or, all of the above. Want to hang out more? Join me on Instagram. Or better yet, get on my mailing list to make sure you don't miss out on anything. And remember, your possibilities are as unlimited as you are. Allow yourself to shine, my friend. The world needs your light. See you next time.